Hey, ProLife Jen, it's Kristan. Welcome back to the Kristan Hawkins Show from the outdoors in the Pacific Northwest. Today's episode is kind of, I'd say, nitty gritty in the world of science and politics. Though it's anything but boring, we have a lot to talk about. We've got some good news that just came out of the state of Louisiana and kind of a cool / creepy new medical development. Plus, I've got a few bonus news episodes I want to quickly cover. So let's get into it. First up is some great news out of Louisiana, as lawmakers there have courageously and rightly so voted against an additional attempt to add a rape exception into their state abortion laws. This effectively declares that babies conceived during sexual assault are not guilty of their father's crimes and are no more disposable than those conceived in the presence of candles and R&B music. This is important. Obviously, the lamestream media and other abortion crazies have gone crazy and they're up in arms about this. I'm particularly annoyed by the articles that point to Louisiana's strict abortion law leading to, quote, higher infant mortality. As one author at News One had the gall to write, I'm going to read you what she wrote. She said, simply medically speaking, these pro-life laws are killing a lot of women and children. Hello? In stating a law that prohibits the killing of children, by definition, will decrease infant mortality because it stops killing babies. To anyone who understands when human life begins, that is a very big duh. Of course, what they mean is, and this is what they don't tell you in these stories and in these headlines and on the reel on social media, is that what they mean is that if abortion is prohibited in the state, the numbers of babies who die from birth complications, from fatal genetic conditions, do increase. What's the real reason why this happens? It's because more babies are going to be born. This is why we see a lot of times the left will say, oh, late-term abortion doesn't exist. But then it does exist, and it usually when we hear stories of women who obtain late-term abortions after 15 weeks, we'll hear heartbreaking stories of children who've been diagnosed with fatal genetic abnormalities or other abnormalities in the womb. Some of the children can survive and some of them can't. That is then used to justify seeking a late-term abortion, which we in the pro-life movement have said over and over again. There's no justification for killing a human being. Even a human being that you may fear may not live very long. There's still no justification for killing a human being because let me be very clear. Killing a baby in the womb who's been diagnosed with a genetic abnormality, which don't get me started on how many times these prenatal tests are wrong. I've covered that over and over again in this podcast. But killing a child in the womb who's been diagnosed with a fatal genetic abnormality doesn't reduce the death rate because you're still killing the baby's being killed now. The baby isn't dying naturally on his or her own, but the baby's still being killed. It still counts as a death. But then we've seen this in Texas too, since the heartbeat law and then the subsequent abolition law has gone into effect in Texas, ending legal surgical abortion. We still know illegal chemical abortions are happening. Watch last week's episode. I'll explain why. But then you'll see people saying, well, infant mortality has gone up. Yes, because some children have been diagnosed with fatal genetic abnormalities and will die shortly after birth. Abortion doesn't cure that. Abortion just kills them before they're born. But then it increases the infant mortality number. I hope that made sense. I'm doing this for you very early out here, and it's very cold, so I'm hoping I'm making sense. But that is literally how these scientists are coming up with this claim that infant mortality rates are increasing because you're killing less babies. I know it takes a minute to think, oh my gosh, this is how stupid they think that we are, that they could lie to us like this, not actually give us real information. But sadly, these lies are repeated over and over again. We hear them all the time on college campuses. It's insane to think that we should advocate for killing these babies instead of letting them, I don't know, be born. Hopefully the genetic tests or the prenatal tests were wrong. Letting these children know love for as long as their life, as long as their life exists, as long as their heart beats. What's wrong with birthing these babies and letting them live a pain-free, loved life as long as possible? When did that become such this terrible thing that we have to prevent by violently killing a child in the womb and administering digoxin and causing a cardiac arrest? When did this happen? These people are so disconnected from real innocent human beings. It's unbelievable. And then to see the arguments, the mainstream media's arguments about why we need a rape exception. It's so disconnected from real people who've actually been conceived because of sexual assault. I want to cut to a clip of Rebecca Kiesling, who joined me about a year or so ago on college campuses to talk about the reality of the rape exception.
I'm highly against abortion,
Sure.
right? But I don't know if the government should be like the one, because I'm very libertarian.
Sure.
Which is, I don't like, unless in specific circumstance, political action being taken against me.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I was conceived in rape. My birth mother went to 2 illegal abortions, backed out because of the law, because it was illegal and the back alley conditions. And so the law literally saved my life prior to Roe v. Wade, 4 years before Roe v. Wade. And so my question for you is, did I deserve the protection that I received?
Yeah, yes. I don't want to, that's a conundrum, ain't it?
That's a conundrum?
I'm wrong, yeah.
Wow. Thank you for saying that.
I'm wrong.
It's one thing for a pro-abortion journalist to argue that pro-life laws without a rape exception are cruel. I think it's quite another, though, to tell a person like Rebecca to their face that their life is worthless based on the circumstances of their conception. In fact, when I've seen it happen in person, students can't do it. They'll argue, pro-abortion people that I'm talking to will argue that these rape babies shouldn't exist. They should be boarded. I will say, look, I want to introduce you to my friend Rebecca. Rebecca will introduce herself and her role in our society as a mother, foster mother, human rights lawyer. And then the person will always go, I wasn't talking about you. You're here. Oh, no, you really were. It's really were. And I know, and I don't jump out the gate talking about this because I think when we're talking about as sensitive, as painful as sexual assault, I don't think leading with statistics is always helpful because it sounds a bit cold. And most people are emotional thinkers, not fact-based thinkers. Remember, facts don't care about your feelings, that whole Ben Shapiro line that the right loves, but the problem is it doesn't really work in a conversation because the people that you're usually arguing with on the political left don't care about facts. They actually elevate feelings more than facts. There's a whole book written on it about the social psychology of decision making between those who are kind of politically left and those who are politically right in every culture. And it's literally been proven that many people think based on feelings and they don't take into account the facts until after the feelings. So I know it's hard for fact-based thinkers. Trust me, I've had to get myself out of this. But so I tend not to lead with this. But the reality is the number of children who are conceived in a sexual assault situation is very low. According to, I saw a study that Planned Parenthood put out, from Montana at one point, because they were arguing against having any common sense laws in, say, Montana. It's about 5% of women who will be sexually assaulted will become pregnant. I think this matters because when you're talking to people about sexual assault, about rape, about abortion, they always come up and they always bring up rape and sexual assault, but then they never know the actual prevalence of it. And it's something to still talk about, but it's something to first acknowledge that the vast, vast majority of women who are seeking abortions, in fact, 97% plus, are not seeking abortions because of a diagnosed genetic abnormality, because of incest, because of sexual assault. They're not. And that's been proven time and time again. So I think this matters because the abortion supporters always try to use circumstances to justify all abortion, and it's completely bogus. Now we'll go back to this one news article in Louisiana because the journalist who wrote it is a self-identified Christian arguing in favor of abortion. And she also then mentions the ultimate thing, right, that she thinks that pro-lifers can't fight back against, is that the maternal mortality rate in Louisiana's Black community is high. They think when they say these things that they've got us and we're just going to like walk up and like walk away from the argument or shut up. I don't have time to go into it. Once again, I mentioned the whole cold thing. I don't want to go into a deep dive, but just let me leave this thought with you. Note how the pro-life movement solution, maternal mortality, is to fix the system, actually fix the problem. And the pro-choice solution always is, let's just kill more babies. More deadly, more lethal. It actually doesn't actually even fix the problem that they said they care about. Ultimately, what happened in the Pelican State is a good sign. It's a good sign that some Republican lawmakers are seeing the light and acknowledging the injustice of punishing a baby with a death sentence for someone else's crime. Not to mention, this isn't even the only good news that's come out of the Pelican State this month. They just moved and voted to criminalize chemical abortion pill creeps who are peddling deadly chemical abortion pills to Louisianans in spite of their pro-life state laws. Basically, everybody else needs to catch up to what's going on in Louisiana. If you live especially if you live in a Republican state, a red state, a state with a bunch of Republicans say they're pro-life, yeah, they need to look to Louisiana for their model legislation. It's great news.
Hey ProLife Jen, it's Kristan here. And if you're like me, spring is a perfect time to do some spring cleaning around the house. And I can't think of a better way to refresh your space than with brand new, ultra soft bed sheets. Well, it does get better with bed sheets that support saving babies. That's why I'm so excited to share with you that Students for Life America has teamed up with Cloud Bedsheet Fundraising to give $20 from every set of sheets you purchase directly to our pro-life mission. These sheets are high quality, ultra soft, and have a 99% satisfaction rate. And yes, I have them in my own home and I love them. It's so easy to be part of this. You head to 123fundraiser.com/life and choose from beautiful colors and the sizes that you need, and then you'll be making impact for life with every set of sheets you buy. Plus, they come with 100% satisfaction money back guarantee, so there's no risk, only reward. Shop now at 123fundraiser.com/life and help save babies with every cozy night's sleep you have.
Last but not least, my last segment I want to talk about are Japanese scientists who have invented something that I have mixed feelings about: a functioning artificial womb. They say they created it to, quote, aid extremely premature infants, potentially revolutionizing neonatal care. Awesome, right? We want more babies to survive. If only I believed this technology was only going to be used for this. Well, let me start with the positives. Giving premature babies a chance to live that would have never been possible before is going to be a blessing to many people. I can imagine it helping doctors understand gestating babies better, propelling fetal medicine in a way that heals instead of harms. Awesome. Not to mention, it's literally providing a window to the womb that shows the obvious humanity of gestating babies, and there could shift the entire abortion debate in our favor. Love that. In fact, once people understand that these are commonplace, the whole like my body, my choice thing should really just go away, right? Because if you can take your baby and put your baby in an artificial womb, what's your argument for killing your baby over doing that? There's no argument. Now, I don't want to rain on this parade, but with any medical or technological tool here, I'm nervous, very nervous about the many ways humanity will probably abuse this development. My first concern is eugenics. It seems awfully easy to screen a growing baby in an artificial womb and kill him or her if there's an undesirable quality present. And this isn't all far-fetched. I'm not like making this up like, oh, Kristan, you're just pretending we're in the movie Gattaca. No, like this happens every single day in IVF clinics across our country. There's a whole thing called PGD, prenatal genetic determination. After they make a bunch of humans in the lab, humans in embryonic form, those humans are then screened. And I've been seeing ads on social media about how you can pay now a couple $1,000s and they'll give you a detailed report about every human you've created in the lab and their prenatal, their genetic predispositions. What color, it's sex, what color eyes, what color hair, predisposition to certain diseases. And then the family, the parents, the owners get to pick which human beings that they've paid to create get to get implanted in their womb or get to be frozen, which 90% of the children frozen will never live and actually be born, or those who just get to be discarded, thrown away, or donated to research to be experimented upon until they die. Genetics happens every day. And many Christians are like, what? It's good. We made more babies. Read. I challenge you. Okay. The next thing that troubles me is that I think it seems feasible down the road that when this technology becomes more commonplace, we might just take mom and dad gametes, fuse them in a lab, grow a baby from start to finish in the artificial womb. No fuss, no mess. So Paris Hilton, who, said she used IVF and then paid a surrogate because of her traumatic abortion experience because she didn't, couldn't emotionally handle getting pregnant again in childbirth. These are children who are never going to be connected to a human ever for their first 9 months. That's exceptionally creepy. What if an unnatural environment messes with the baby's development somehow? What if avoiding an actual natural pregnancy reduces the mother and the baby's ability to physically bond? What if parental instincts were dramatically affected or reduced? What's going to happen to breastfeeding? God's design for the process of pregnancy and birth and parenthood is utterly perfect. It is. And it's hard. And it's painful because of Eve. But it's perfect. The possibility that one day we might cast it aside does not sound good at all. I could talk about this for a while because this is going to be a very interesting bioethics conversation. But the last thing I want to mention about this is the mishaps that could happen. I can't help but think, but the IVF industry, which is, by the way, constantly messing up, accidentally putting humans in embryonic form in the wrong wombs. Remember those stories have come out? What if we make human errors with these artificial wombs? I can't even think of what the human errors are, but I don't trust humans enough not to make those mistakes because we are human. What if we use the wrong egg with the wrong sperm, or maybe the wrong egg with the correct sperm, but then create this human and then put the human in one of these artificial wombs, and then the baby starts to grow, and then we're like, oh, that baby has the wrong DNA. Let's kill it. Let's abort the baby. Even though we can see the baby and we see the baby growing. What happens if the power goes out at the lab where these babies are growing? I know there's really no stopping human innovation, but I really hope and pray that we can tread carefully on this one. I just don't have high hopes because I think that when it comes to bioethics, when it comes to actually having an honest conversation about the value and dignity of every human life, we are very far gone. And I thank God for the conversation has started to finally turn back on IVF, but we still have a long way to go. Lastly, I want to give you a quick rundown on some pro-life news that's been popping up while I've been out here in the Olympic Peninsula avoiding the news. Probably the biggest one is a very sad story out of Pennsylvania. So you'll remember back in March, I talked about a story where a young girl was over 20 weeks pregnant, went to the Planned Parenthood Keystone, tried to get chemical abortion pills and abortion. They would not give her abortion because she was so far late. It violated the state's abortion laws, which allows abortion pretty late. So she and her mother obtained chemical abortion pills from New York illegally, took them, even though she wasn't supposed to because she was too far along in pregnancy, had the abortion, the baby was born. She was texting her friend admitting that the baby was alive, and then texted and told her friend that she had buried the baby in her backyard, this little boy. So charges have finally been announced against this mother, this young mother, and her mother, the baby's boy's grandmother. Despite what you may hear, the charges aren't because of abortion. The charges are for abuse of a corpse, and this is important because this is something that women are not being told when they're having chemical abortions, is that, hey, by the way, there's going to be a human body that comes out of you, because remember, it's not just a clump of cells, it's actually a baby, and you have to do something with that body. We still have laws that say you can't bury grandpa in your backyard. I can't have my arm amputated and then go bury it in my backyard either, because there's specific rules because of our water about burying body parts in humans in the ground. They have to be buried so far down. Sometimes they have to be buried in bedrock. Yeah, with chemical abortion, we pretend like this doesn't happen. The 700,000 times it happens every year, and now this is happening over and over and over and over again. So despite what you hear, the mother, the baby boy is not being charged with having an abortion, an illegal abortion. She's being charged with burying her dead baby in her backyard, as she should. All right, next one's a bummer too. Sorry, all these news items I think are bummers. A man in Texas has been charged, another man, with lacing his girlfriend's drink with chemical abortion pills after she refused to abort her child. She had just been to the doctor. She had seen the ultrasound of their healthy baby right before he drugged them. Tragically, he was successful in killing his own child and has been rightfully charged with murder. And finally, other sad one I want to talk. Well, there's two more sad ones. Finally, there's a barf bag story ready for you, because there is a nasty abortion group called Plan C that's doing a, quote, community road trip this summer. This is the website where you can go and get chemical abortion pills from. We don't even know if they're actual chemical abortion pills or just like random websites that sell pills, and you just buy them from like India and China and Mexico. And you don't have to prove you're pregnant. You don't have to prove you're not a sex trafficker. You don't have to prove that you're not experiencing life-threatening ectopic pregnancy. Yeah, this website is pretty messed up, and it functions in every state. Like, you can be in Texas, West Virginia, and go to planc.org and order chemical abortion pills in 2 minutes and violate your state laws. They're going on a community road trip this summer to market their website, and where they plan to mislead people all over America with their chemical abortion propaganda in the form of parades, block parties, performances, and other kind of crazy nonsense. Their goal is to make these pills rampant, unregulated, and medically unsupervised. So much for safe, legal, rare, old Bill Clinton 1990s Democrat mantra on abortion. They don't care about making them safe. They don't care if they're legal, and they certainly don't care if they're rare. All right, and then the last terrible news story, is about the deranged Tim Walz appointee in Minnesota, who went after, I think, where his political colleagues in the Democratic Farm Labor Party killed one of the state members there, and her husband shot another state legislator and his wife. Those two, thank God, that they're going to survive, even though he was shot 9 times. She was shot, I think, 7 or 8. They found a hit list in his car with other names, no King's literature, manifesto stuff. There have been conflicting reports about whether this person was a Republican or Democrat, because this is how messed up our country is. The first time there's a mass as soon as a mass shooting has been reported, someone's going on Facebook or Instagram and trying to figure out what this person's political party is and why this crazy person did this act of evil. Yeah, that's how messed up our country is. So anyway, there's been conflicting reports about whether or not this person's a Republican or he's a Democrat, even though he's a Tim Walz appointee. I read somewhere it was like his roommate, which is weird because I think he's married and has kids, so probably is not a great situation going on if he has a roommate. I don't know if it's divorce, job loss. One thing said he had voted for Trump. One thing said he was in desperate search for a job. I don't know what's going on. I think it's going to be weeks before we actually fully know what's going on. And even then, I'm going to have to scour the articles, because depending on the person's bias who's writing it, because remember, there's no such thing as unbiased journalists anymore, then we'll have to figure out what's actually truth. But the bottom line is this person committed evil, and he clearly shows he's someone who values neither life nor his country. And yeah, that's all I'll have to say about that, because it's pretty awful and horrific. Thank you guys, though, for joining this episode, very special episode today, the Kristan Hawkins Show. I hope freezing my butt off at 6 a.m. was worth it for you all. I did it for you because I wanted to keep you informed and update what's going on. Make sure you continue to subscribe to my podcast and anywhere you get your podcast, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, whatever. And if you want to hear from me daily, make sure you join my text chain. You can just text the word Kristan. You have to know how to spell my name. That's the only trick. Kristan. To 53445. You'll get a text from me Monday through Friday on a news item that I think is important that you should know about, or an action item that I would love for you to join me in taking. Until next week, though, keep protecting the most defenseless among us and turning the tide in our culture that values every human life, born and preborn. Bye, guys.